The stars had always been silent. For 200 years, humanity had reached into the void, built colonies on Mars, stations around Jupiter, and mining platforms in the asteroid belt. They had searched for signs of life with giant telescopes and sent messages into the darkness. Nothing ever answered Dot until now. Admiral Helena Vance stood in the command center of United Earth Defense, her gray eyes fixed on the massive screen before her. 12,000 alien warships hung in orbit above Earth like a swarm of metal wasps. Each vessel was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls were smooth and black, covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft blue light. "They arrived 6 hours ago," said Colonel James Park, his voice tight with fear. "No warning. They just appeared out of nowhere." Helena said nothing. She had spent 30 years preparing for threats. Wars between nations. Terrorist attacks. Asteroid impacts. She had never prepared for this. The screen flickered and a face appeared. It was not human. The creature had gray skin stretched tight over a skull that was too long. Its eyes were large and completely black, like pools of oil. When it spoke, its thin lips barely moved, and the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am High Arbiter Zethron of the Velkarth Dominion," the creature said. "Your species has been discovered. You will now receive the terms of your submission." Helena felt the room grow cold. Officers around her stopped breathing. On screens across the world, billions of humans watched the same broadcast. "The Velkarth Dominion has ruled this region of the galaxy for 8,000 years, Zethron continued. "We have encountered 412 species. All of them now serve us. This is not cruelty. This is order. This is peace." The alien paused, as if expecting gratitude. "You have 72 standard hours to surrender. Your leaders will present themselves to our vessels. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your population will be assigned roles within our labor system. Those who cooperate will live. Those who resist will be removed." Helena noticed the alien's choice of words. Not killed, removed, as if humans were nothing more than dirt to be swept away. "In our history, every species has chosen surrender," Zethran said. "War against the Dominion is not possible. It is not logical. We have studied your world. We know your weapons, your nuclear devices, your primitive ships. They are nothing to us. You cannot win. You can only choose how you wish to survive." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one spoke. Helena could hear her own heartbeat. She could feel the weight of every eye in the room pressing against her back. "Admiral," Colonel Park said quietly, "what do we do?" Helena turned to face her officers. She saw fear in their eyes. She saw doubt. She saw the same question burning in every mind. Was survival worth slavery? "Get me General Chun in Beijing," she said. "President Williams in Washington. Premier Volkov in Moscow. Chancellor Weber in Berlin. Everyone. I want every leader on this planet in a conference call within the hour." "Admiral," the alien said, "I heard what they said." Helena's voice was calm, but there was iron beneath the words. "Now I want to know what we say." The next 12 hours were chaos. World leaders screamed at each other through video screens. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight. Old enemies blamed each other for having no defense against this threat. Religious leaders called it the end times. Stock markets crashed. Riots broke out in major cities. Through it all, Helena worked. She made calls. She reviewed files that had been classified for decades. She spoke to scientists and generals and engineers who had been working on humanity's darkest secret project, Prometheus. 20 years ago. A damaged alien probe had crashed in the Pacific Ocean. It was not from the Velkarth. but from some other species, perhaps one of the 400 that had already fallen. The probe's technology was centuries ahead of anything on Earth. Governments had hidden it, studied it, and slowly learned its secrets. They had built ships. 200 warships, hidden in secret shipyards beneath the surface of Mars. They were not as advanced as the alien vessels, but they were weapons. Real weapons designed for war in space. The world leaders finally stopped arguing and listened to Helena's plan. "We cannot beat 12,000 ships with 200, she admitted. "But we can hurt them. We can show them that humans do not surrender. We can make them pay for every inch of space they try to take." "And then what?" asked President Williams. "They destroy us anyway?" "Maybe," Helena said. "Or maybe they decide we are not worth the trouble. Or maybe something else happens. I do not know. But I know this. If we kneel now, we kneel forever. Our children will be slaves. Their children will be slaves. Every generation until the end of time will curse us for giving up without a fight." The vote was not unanimous, but it was enough. 60 hours after the alien ultimatum, Earth's response was broadcast on every frequency, translated into the Velkarath language by the best linguists humanity had. "To the Velkarath Dominion, we have received your terms. We reject them. We are not your servants. We are not your slaves. We are the people of Earth, and we bow to no one. You want our planet? Come and take it." Then came the coordinates. A point in space between Earth and Mars. A challenge. Adair. High Arbiter Zethron watched the message 3 times. His advisors assured him it was a mistake, a translation error, perhaps a desperate bluff. No species had ever refused. It simply did not happen. "They are frightened," one advisor said. "They do not understand what they face. When they see our fleet approach, they will change their minds." Zethron was not so sure. He had studied the humans during the waiting period. He had watched their history files. This was a species that had fought itself for thousands of years. They had weapons that could destroy their own cities, and they had used them. They burned their own world and still survived. They were not logical creatures, but logic always won in the end. It had to move the fleet, Zethron commanded. "We will teach them what defiance costs." As the Velkarath Armada began its advance, something else moved in the darkness. Deep beneath the red dust of Mars, 200 engines roared to life. Hangar doors opened, and ships rose into the sky, ugly, brutal things made of thick armor and heavy guns. They were not elegant like the alien vessels. They were built for one purpose only. Ward. Admiral Helena Vance stood on the bridge of the UE's Defiance, the flagship of the Prometheus fleet. Around her, officers worked at their stations with grim focus. No one smiled. No one joked. They all knew they might die in the coming hours, but not one of them had refused to serve. Helena looked at the stars ahead, where 12,000 enemy ships waited. "All vessels," she said into the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Vance. Today we make history. Today we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. Hold nothing back. Give them everything we have." She paused, then added quietly, "And may God forgive us for what we are about to do." The fleet accelerated toward the enemy. The first battle for Earth had begun. High Arbiter Zethron had conquered 11 species himself. He had watched worlds burn and civilizations crumble. He had seen every type of resistance. Desperate attacks, clever tricks, final stands that accomplished nothing. All of them ended the same way: surrender or death. But he had never seen anything like this. The human fleet was approaching fast. Too fast. His tactical officers reported their speed with confusion in their voices. The enemy ships were not slowing down. They were not taking defensive positions. They were charging straight at the Dominion Armada like animals running toward a fire. Perhaps their navigation systems are damaged, suggested Commander Verkith, his second in command. All 200 of them? Zethron replied coldly. He studied the human vessels on his screen. They were crude things covered in thick plates of metal. No elegance, no beauty. They looked like weapons that had been given engines and pointed at the enemy. Their design spoke of a single purpose: to get close and cause damage. No matter the cost, the Velkaroth fought differently. Their ships stayed at long range, using powerful energy weapons to destroy enemies from safe distances. Close combat was primitive, dangerous, unnecessary, but the humans did not seem to care about safety. "Open a channel," Zethron ordered. Perhaps they have reconsidered. The communication link connected. A human female appeared on his screen. She had gray hair and hard eyes that showed no fear. Behind her, Zethron could see other humans working at stations, their faces tight with focus. "I am High Arbiter Zethron. You are Admiral Vance, I assume. You assume correctly. Your gesture of defiance has been noted. It is brave but foolish. I offer you one final chance to surrender. Your people do not need to die today." The human woman tilted her head slightly. "Neither do yours." Zethron felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. It took him a moment to recognize it as surprise. No one had ever suggested that his forces might be in danger. "You cannot win," he said carefully. "Our weapons will destroy your ships before you even reach us. Your armor means nothing against our technology. This is simple mathematics." "Math is not everything," Admiral Vance replied. "You have studied our history. You have seen our wars. But I do not think you understand what you saw. I understand that you are violent creatures who destroy each other constantly. This is weakness, not strength." "No." The human shook her head slowly. "That is practice." The channel closed. Zethron stared at the empty screen for a long moment. "High Arbiter?" Commander Verkith asked nervously. "Your orders?" Zethron straightened in his seat. "Destroy them. All of them. Show no mercy." The Volkarath fleet opened fire. Beams of blue energy cut through space like blades of light. They struck the leading human ships with enough power to vaporize mountains. Shields flickered and died. Armor melted. 3 human vessels exploded in the first 10 seconds, but the others kept coming. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Vance gripped the arms of her chair as the ship shook from a near miss. Warning lights flashed red. Officers shouted damage reports, but her voice remained calm. "All ships maintain course. Do not slow down. Do not spread out." We punched through together. Captain Dmitry Volkov commanded the U.E. Spite, a heavy assault cruiser near the front of the formation. His ship had already taken 2 direct hits. Half his crew was dead. Fires burned in 3 sections. The engines were failing, but he was close now. So close. "Engineering, give me everything," he ordered. "Burn out the reactors if you have to. Just get me to that flagship." His target was the largest Velkaroth vessel, the one that carried Zethron himself. Its shields glowed bright blue, fed by generators the size of city blocks. A direct attack would accomplish nothing, unless someone removed those generators first. "Sir, the reactor is critical," his engineer reported. "If we push any harder—" "I know," Dmitri said quietly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small photograph. A little girl with blonde hair smiled up at him. His daughter. She was 7 years old. She lived in Moscow with her mother. She liked to dance. He would never see her again. "All hands, abandon ship," Dmitri commanded. "Get to the escape pods." "That is an order." "Captain, what are you—" "Go. Now, I will finish this." His crew hesitated, then obeyed. They knew what he was doing. Some of them had tears in their eyes as they ran for the pods. One young officer stopped at the door. "I will tell them," she said. "I will tell everyone what you did." Dmitri nodded. "Tell my daughter I love her." Then he was alone. The Spite accelerated toward the enemy flagship. Valkyrith weapons tore into the hull, ripping away armor plating and destroying compartments. The ship was dying around him. But Dmitri did not stop. He aimed for the glowing generators at the base of the flagship's shields. He thought about his daughter, about her laugh, about the way she said "Papa" when he came home from long deployments. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people counting on this fleet, about the future they would have if humanity survived. He thought about what kind of man he wanted to be remembered. As the Spite struck the shield generator at full speed, the impact was massive. The generator exploded, and for a brief moment, the flagship's shields flickered and died. Dmitri Volkov smiled as the fire consumed him. Across the battlefield, human ships saw the opening. They poured fire into the exposed flagship. Missiles and shells slammed into the hull. Explosions ripped through decks that had never known damage. Zethron was thrown from his seat as his ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. Officers shouted in panic. This was not possible. This did not happen to the Velkorath. Damage report, he demanded. Shields are gone. Hull breaches on 12 decks. We are losing atmosphere. How? One ship did this? Commander Verkith pulled himself up from the floor. His face was pale with shock. "High Arbiter, they rammed us. The human flew his ship directly into our shields. He killed himself to hurt us." Zethron felt cold. Not the cold of space, but something deeper. Something that touched his very soul. In 8,000 years of conquest, no enemy had ever done such a thing. Suicide attacks were not unknown in the galaxy, but they were rare acts of desperation from broken species with nothing left to lose. The humans had just begun fighting. They had made this choice in the first minutes of battle. What kind of creatures were these? The battle raged on for hours. The Velkarth had numbers and technology. The humans have fury and fearlessness. They fought like demons, charging into close range where Velkarth weapons were less effective. They used nuclear warheads as close-range weapons, detonating them near their own ships if it meant damaging the enemy. When the shooting finally stopped, over 1,000 Velkarth vessels drifted dead in space. The humans had lost nearly 40 ships. The mathematics still favored the Dominion, but mathematics had not prepared Zethron for what he felt: fear. "We are receiving a transmission from the human admiral," an officer reported. Zethron nodded. "Show me." Admiral Vance appeared on screen. Her face was bloody, her uniform torn, but she was smiling. "High Arbiter," she said. "Thank you for the warm-up. We look forward to round 2. The transmission ended, for the first time in his long life. Zethron gave an order that no Velkarth commander had ever given. "All ships, retreat. Fall back to defensive positions." His officers stared at him in disbelief, but no one argued. They had all seen what the humans could do. They had all watched that captain fly his burning ship into their shields without hesitation. As the Dominion fleet pulled back, Zethron sat alone in his damaged command center. He looked at his hands that had signed death warrants for entire worlds, and noticed they were trembling. The humans had not won. Not yet. But they had done something far more dangerous. They had proven they could not be scared into submission. And that changed everything. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. On 400 worlds, billions of enslaved creatures heard the whispers. A new species had been discovered. They had been given the same ultimatum that every other species had received. But unlike everyone else, they had said no. and they had survived. Sorval was a worker on the mining planet Kethmara. His species, the Rethari, had been conquered 3,000 years ago. They had been miners ever since, digging precious metals from deep underground for masters they never saw. Sorval had never known anything else. His parents had been miners. Their parents had been miners. For 100 generations, his people had lived and died in darkness. He did not know what freedom meant. He had never even heard the word, but he knew what he felt when he saw the footage dot. It was smuggled in on a supply ship, hidden in a data chip smaller than his fingernail. The workers gathered in secret to watch it on a broken screen in an abandoned tunnel. Sorval pushed to the front of the crowd, his heart beating fast. The video showed a battle. Valkyrith warships filled the screen. Thousands of them, just like the ones that had conquered the Rethari long ago. Sorval felt the old fear rise in his chest. The fear that his people had carried for 3,000 years. Then he saw the other ships, smaller, uglier, moving fast toward the enemy. Humans, whispered an old worker beside him. That is what they call themselves. Sorval watched as the human ships attacked. He watched them charge directly into enemy fire. He watched them explode and burn and die. But they did not run. They did not surrender. They kept fighting until the Valkyrith fleet pulled back. The video ended. No one spoke. Sorval stared at the dark screen. He felt something strange in his chest. Something he could not name. It was warm and tight, like a fist closing around his heart. One of the humans had crashed his ship into the enemy flagship. He had killed himself to break through the shields. Sorval could not understand it. Why would anyone do that? Why would anyone choose death when survival was possible? But even as he asked the question, he felt something else. A tiny spark in the darkness. A flame that had not burned in his people for 3,000 years. Hope. Far away. In the command center of the Dominion homeworld, High Arbiter Zethran faced the Supreme Council. 7 ancient Velkorath sat in a half-circle around him, their black eyes cold with displeasure. "You retreated," said the eldest, a creature so old that his gray skin had turned almost white. "In 8,000 years, no Velkorath commander has ever retreated. I preserved our forces for a stronger attack," Zethran replied, keeping his voice steady. "The humans fight in ways we did not expect. I needed time to develop new strategies. They are primitives. Their ships are crude. Their weapons are basic. You outnumbered them 60 to 1. The elder leaned forward. "And yet you ran." "I did not run. I made a tactical decision. You were afraid." The word hung in the air like poison. Zethran felt his hands tighten into fists. In Velkorath society, fear was the greatest weakness. A commander who showed fear was removed, permanently. "I have conquered 11 species," Zethran said coldly. "I have destroyed worlds that resisted our rule. I do not feel fear." "Then explain what happened." Zethran took a slow breath. "The humans are different. They do not think like other species. They do not value survival above all else. They are willing to die eager to die, if their deaths serve a purpose. This makes them unpredictable. This makes them dangerous." "Dangerous?" One of the council members laughed a dry, clicking sound. "They lost 40 ships. We lost 1,000. We can afford those losses forever." "They cannot." "That is true," Zethran admitted. "But there is something else. Something worse." He activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy, with the 400 conquered worlds marked in blue. "The subject species are watching. They have seen the humans resist. They have seen us retreat. For the first time in thousands of years, they are asking questions. They are wondering if we can be beaten." The council fell silent. If we do not crush the humans quickly and completely, Zethron continued, others may try to follow their example. We cannot fight 400 rebellions at once. We must end this now, before the infection spreads. The eldest council member nodded slowly. Then you shall have what you need. 50,000 additional warships. The full strength of the Dominion. Destroy Earth. Destroy their colonies. Erase every trace of their existence. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who defy us. Zeth-Ron bowed. It will be done. On Earth, Admiral Helena Vance knew they had won a battle, not a war. The Prometheus fleet had been reduced to 160 ships. Repairs would take weeks. They had no way to build replacements fast enough. When the aliens returned with their full armada, humanity would be crushed, unless they did something impossible. We cannot defend against 50,000 ships, Helena told the gathered leaders on her screen. But we do not have to. If we destroy their command structure, their empire will fall apart. How? Asked President Williams. Their homeworld is 4,000 light-years away. We have captured alien ships. We have studied their faster-than-light engines. Dr. Tanaka believes we can modify our vessels to use the same technology. Helena paused. We can hit them where they live. The room erupted in arguments. It was suicide, some said. Madness. They would be sending their only defenders away while Earth remained vulnerable. Earth is already vulnerable, Helena replied. Nothing we can do will change that. But if we strike their homeworld, if we show the galaxy that the Velkorath can bleed, then we give others a reason to fight. We will not be alone anymore. General Marcus Cole, the commander of Earth's ground defenses, spoke up. And if you fail? Then you hold Earth as long as you can. Make them pay for every meter. Give the other species time to rise. Helena looked at each face on the screen. We cannot survive alone. But maybe we do not have to. The vote took 3 hours. In the end, approval came by a margin of 2 votes. Operation Fury Road was approved. Word went out across Earth's remaining military forces. Volunteers were needed for a strike mission against the enemy homeworld. The mission was expected to have no survivors. They needed crews for 30 ships. 10,000 people applied in the first hour. Helena personally reviewed every application. She saw soldiers and scientists, pilots and engineers. She saw old veterans and young recruits. She saw people who had lost family members in the first battle, and people who simply believed that some things were worth dying for. She chose carefully. She needed the best, the bravest, the ones who understood what they were giving up. The night before departure, Helena walked through the hangar where the modified ships waited. Workers moved around them, making final adjustments. The vessels had been painted black, with a simple white symbol on each hull. A clenched fist. Captain Elena Rodriguez approached her. The young woman had been chosen to lead the strike force. She had already lost 2 brothers in the first battle. Her eyes were hard as steel. Admiral, Elena said. The crews are ready, I know. Helena looked at the ships. You understand what I'm asking you to do? Yes, ma'am. We understand. Elena smiled slightly. We are not afraid. I know that too. Helena reached out and gripped the captain's shoulder. Make it count. Make them remember us. We will. As Helena turned to leave, Elena called after her. Admiral, what will you do while we are gone? Helena paused. I will be here, holding the line, waiting for you to shake the galaxy. And if we do not come back? Helena looked over her shoulder. Then I will finish what you started. Or die trying. The strike force launched at midnight. 30 black ships rose from the Martian surface and accelerated toward the stars. In seconds, their faster-than-light drives activated, and they vanished into the void, 4,000 light-years away. The Velkarath had no idea what was coming, but on hundreds of conquered worlds, slaves looked up at the sky and wondered if the universe was about to change. Soval stood in his tunnel on Kethmara, holding the data chip with the human footage. He had watched it 100 times now. He had memorized every moment. He did not know if the humans would win. He did not know if freedom was possible after 3,000 years. But for the first time in his life, he believed it might be Dodd, and that was enough to start. The Velkarath homeworld was called Dominus Prime. It had been the center of their empire for 10,000 years. Great cities covered its surface, filled with monuments to conquest and power. Orbital platforms surrounded it like rings of steel. Defense stations bristled with weapons that could destroy moons. No enemy had ever reached Dominus Prime. The very idea was unthinkable. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance as her ship hurtled through faster-than-light space. Around her, 29 other vessels carried crews who had accepted death as the price of this mission. They had traveled for 3 days, eating cold rations, sleeping in shifts, and preparing for a battle they did not expect to survive. 2 minutes to arrival, her navigator announced. Elena nodded. She looked at her crewmen and women who had volunteered for a suicide mission without hesitation. Some of them were praying quietly. Others checked their weapons. A few simply stared ahead, their faces calm. "All hands," Elena said over the ship-wide channel. "This is the captain. In 2 minutes, we will drop out of faster-than-light travel directly above the enemy homeworld. They do not know we are coming. They do not believe we could reach them. We are about to prove them wrong." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Many of us will die today. Maybe all of us. But what we do here will be remembered forever. We are not just fighting for Earth. We are fighting for every species that has ever been crushed under the Velkarath boot. We are showing the galaxy that tyrants can fall." The countdown timer reached 0.30. Human ships exploded out of faster-than-light space, directly above Dominus Prime. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Velkarath defense systems had never been designed for this. Their sensors searched for threats approaching from known directions, from expected routes. They were not looking for enemies who appeared from nowhere, directly above their most sacred cities. That moment of confusion was all the humans needed. "All ships, weapons free," Elena commanded. Missiles launched. Shells fired. Nuclear warheads streaked toward the defense platforms like angry stars. The first explosions lit up the sky of Dominus Prime. Visible from the surface below. Billions of Velkarath looked up and saw something impossible. Fire in their sky. Their shields. Their weapons. Burning. High Arbiter Zethron received the news aboard his flagship, still en route to Earth with 50,000 warships. His communications officer spoke the words as if they made no sense. "High Arbiter, Dominus Prime is under attack." Zethron turned slowly. "Repeat that." "Human vessels. 30 of them. They appeared without warning. Our defenses are failing." The holographic display showed the chaos. Human ships weaving between defense platforms, destroying them one by one. Velkarath warships scrambling to respond, but too slow, too confused. The humans were inside their formation before they could organize. How? Zethron demanded. How did they get there? We do not know. They must have used our own faster-than-light technology. They reversed engineered our drives. Zethron felt a cold rage building in his chest. In weeks. We spent centuries developing that technology, and they copied it in weeks. On the screen, a human ship ran directly into a Velkarath command station. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire, but the station shields died with it, leaving a gap in the planetary defenses. Another human ship flew through that gap, heading straight for the surface. "They are going to hit the capital," the communications officer said, his voice breaking. "They are going to hit the Grand Palace." Zethron watched helplessly as the human vessel descended toward the heart of his civilization. Defense cannons fired, tearing pieces from the ship's hull. It should have been destroyed 100 times over, but somehow it kept falling, burning, dying, but still moving. The impact was catastrophic. The human ship struck the Grand Palace at full speed, detonating its remaining weapons on contact. The explosion was so bright that the sensors went blind for 3 seconds. When vision returned, the Grand Palace seat of the Supreme Council, symbol of Vel'Karath's power for 8,000 years, was a crater. Zethran stared at the image. The council members who had questioned him, who had called him a coward, who had demanded he crush the humans without mercy, all of them were dead, killed by a species they had dismissed as primitives. "High Arbiter," an officer said quietly, "what are your orders?" Zethron did not answer. He could not. For the first time in his life, he had no idea what to do. Across the galaxy, the news spread even faster than the attack on Earth had. The humans had struck Dominus Prime. They had destroyed the Supreme Council. They had proven that the Vel'Karath could be heard at home, where they believed themselves safe. On Kethmara, Sorval heard the news from a guard who was drunk on celebration liquor. The Vel'Karath on the planet were in chaos, unsure whether to celebrate the humans' eventual defeat or fear their own destruction. Sorval saw an opportunity. He gathered his friends, workers he trusted, people who had watched the human footage with him, and spoke to them in a quiet corner of the mines. "The masters are distracted," he said. "Their leaders are dead. Their attention is on the humans. If we act now, we can take the mining station. We can send a signal to others. We can start something." "Start what?" asked an old miner, his face weathered by decades of labor. "A rebellion? We have no weapons, no training. We are miners. So were the humans once." Sorval pulled out the data chip. "I watched their history. Thousands of years ago, they were nothing. Animals living in caves. They built themselves into what they are now. They fought everything, their planet, their diseases, each other. And they survived." He looked at the faces around him. He saw fear, doubt, the same emotions as people had felt for 3,000 years. But he also saw something new, something small but growing. "We can survive too," Sorval said. "We just have to believe that we can." The old miner was silent for a long moment. Then he reached out and took Sorval's hand. "Tell us what to do." The rebellion on Kethmara began that night. Workers overwhelmed their guards with tools and stones. They seized the communications array and sent a message to every corner of the planet, then to the stars beyond. The message was simple: "We are rising. Join us." On other worlds, similar scenes played out. The Thraxi of Delos 9 remembered that they had once been warriors before their conquest. They raided Vel'Karath armories and armed themselves with stolen weapons. The Zilani of Rist, major scientists and engineers who had been forced to build weapons for their masters, began sabotaging production lines and turning factory machines into bombs. The galaxy was waking up. Back above Dominus Prime, Captain Elena Rodriguez was dying. Her ship had taken fatal damage in the initial assault. Half her crew was already dead. The other half was fighting fires and sealing breaches in a desperate attempt to keep the vessel alive for a few more minutes. But Elena did not care about survival anymore. She cared about the transmission she was broadcasting. "To all species under Vel'Karath rule," she said, her voice steady despite the blood running down her face. "My name is Elena Rodriguez. I am a human. We came here to show you that the Dominion can fall. Their capital is burning. Their leaders are dead. They are not gods. They are not invincible. They are just another species that chose to rule through fear. An explosion rocked the ship. Elena gripped her chair and kept talking. We may not survive this day, but that does not matter. What matters is that you see us fight. What matters is that you understand. Freedom is possible. You just have to take it. She looked at her crew, the survivors, bloody and exhausted, but still standing at their posts. The universe does not give freedom to those who wait. It gives freedom to those who fight. So fight for yourselves, for your children, for every generation that comes after. Show the galaxy what you are made of. The transmission ended as a Volkarath warship's main cannon struck the Vengeance. The vessel broke apart, scattering debris across the sky of Dominus Prime. Captain Elena Rodriguez died with a smile on her face. She had delivered her message. The rest was up to the galaxy. 27 human ships were destroyed in the attack on Dominus Prime. Only 3 managed to escape, limping back toward Earth with news of their victory. But the real damage could not be measured in ships or buildings. The real damage was in the minds of billions of slaves who had just learned that their chains could be broken. The Volkarath Empire, undefeated for 8,000 years, was about to face something it had never experienced before, a war on every front. High Arbiter Zethron stood alone in his command chamber, watching his empire burn. Reports flooded in from every corner of the galaxy. Rebellions on 40 worlds. Then 100. Then 200. The Thraxi had taken 3 star systems. The Zelani had destroyed a shipyard that produced a quarter of the Dominion's fleet. The Rathari miners who had served for 3,000 years had captured Kethmara and were spreading to neighboring planets. 8,000 years of conquest, unraveling in a matter of weeks. All because of one species that refused to kneel. Zethran's fleet had been forced to turn back from Earth. They could not leave Dominus Prime defenseless while rebels burned their way across the stars. But every ship sent to crush one rebellion allowed another to grow stronger. Every victory cost resources they could no longer replace. The humans had not defeated the Volkarath in battle. They had done something far worse. They had given the galaxy an idea. And ideas, Zethron now understood, were harder to kill than armies. High Arbiter. Commander Verkis's voice came through the communication system. The human fleet is approaching Dominus Prime. 112 vessels. Zethron closed his eyes. The humans had rebuilt faster than expected, incorporating captured Volkarath technology into their crude ships. They had also gathered ally species that had broken free, were now sending their own vessels to join the assault. The human fleet had grown into something larger, something united. How many ships do we have? Zethron asked. 6,000, High Arbiter. The others are scattered across the Empire, fighting rebellions. 6,000 against 100. The mathematics still favored the Dominion. But Zethron had learned not to trust mathematics when fighting humans. Prepare for battle, he commanded, and open a channel to the enemy fleet. I wish to speak with their leader. Admiral Helena Vance appeared on his screen. She looked older than she had in their first conversation. Tired. There were new scars on her face. Marks from battles fought while he had been struggling to hold his empire together. But her eyes were the same. Hard. Unafraid. High Arbiter, she said. You look troubled. Your species has caused me great difficulty. Good. Zethron studied her face, searching for something he could understand. Why? That is what I cannot comprehend. You could have surrendered. Your people could have lived. Instead, you chose war. You chose death. You burned your own future to light fires across my empire. Why? Helena was silent for a moment. Then she spoke. 400 years ago, there was a man named Patrick Henry. He lived in a nation that was fighting for independence from a larger empire. He gave a speech that became famous among my people. He said, "Give me liberty or give me death." That is madness. No, that is humanity. Helena leaned forward. You measured us by our technology, our weapons, our numbers. You should have measured us by what we are. We are the species that walks in the fire, that climbs out of graves, that looks at gods and says, "No, you did not invade a planet. You woke up a dragon." Zethron felt something cold settle in his chest. He recognized it now, the same sensation he had felt when that human captain crashed his ship into the flagship shields. The same sensation when his Supreme Council died in flames. Fear. "This changes nothing," he said, forcing strength into his voice. "I still outnumber you. I will still destroy your fleet. Maybe." Helena smiled slightly. "But you will not destroy what we started. Look around you, High Arbiter. Your empire is falling apart. Your subjects are rising. And nothing you do to us will change that. The fire is already burning. We just lit the match." The transmission ended. Zethron turned to his officers. Their faces were grim. They knew what was coming. They knew the battle would be brutal. "All ships," he ordered, "attack." The Battle of Dominus Prime was the largest engagement in galactic history. 6,000 Vel'Korath warships clashed with a combined fleet of humans. Thraxi, Zelani, Rithari, and a dozen other species fighting for their freedom. Energy beams and missiles crossed the void in a deadly dance of light and fire. The Vel'Korath had superior numbers and technology, but the Allied forces had something they did not: desperation. Hope, the knowledge that this was their one chance to break the chains forever. Ships on both sides burned and died. The human vessel UES Defiance, Admiral Vance's flagship, took 3 direct hits but kept fighting. A Thraxi battlecruiser sacrificed itself to block a shot aimed at a Zelani troop transport. A Rithari mining ship, barely armed at all, rammed a Vel'Korath destroyer to protect a damaged human frigate. They fought together. They died together. Species that had never met before this war, united by a common enemy and a shared dream. Sorval watched the battle from a commandeered Vel'Korath shuttle. He had come with the Rithari ships, refusing to stay behind while others fought for freedom. His hands were shaking as he watched the chaos on the tactical display. "We are losing too many ships," said the pilot. "Another Rithari named Kale. They are going to overwhelm us." Sorval shook his head. "Look at them fight. Look at the humans. They do not care about dying. They care about winning." As if to prove his point, a human ship broke through the Vel'Korath defensive line. It was heavily damaged, trailing smoke and fire, but it kept moving straight towards Zethron's flagship. The vessel was the UES Vengeance II, named after Captain Rodriguez's ship. Destroyed in the first attack on Dominus Prime, its captain was a woman named Sarah Chen, whose parents had died in the initial invasion of Earth. She had been waiting for this moment. "All crew, abandon ship," Sarah commanded. "I will finish this alone." Her crew obeyed, launching escape pods into the chaos of battle. Sarah stayed at the helm, guiding her dying ship toward the enemy flagship. Vel'Korath weapons tore into the hull, but she did not slow down. Zethron saw her coming. He screamed orders to his gunners, demanded they destroy the human vessel before it reached him. But there were too many targets, too much chaos. The ship kept coming. In her final moments, Sarah Chun thought about her parents, about the billions who had died in this war, about the future that her sacrifice might create. She was not afraid. She was proud. The Vengeance II struck Zethron's flagship just below the command bridge. The explosion tore through the vessel, destroying systems and killing hundreds. The flagship began to drift, powerless. Zethron survived the impact. He pulled himself from the wreckage, blood running down his face, and looked out through a shattered viewport at the battle beyond. He saw his fleet retreating. He saw allied ships pushing forward. He saw the tide of the battle turning in a way he had never believed possible. A human boarding party stormed onto his ship minutes later. They moved through the corridors with brutal efficiency, cutting down any resistance. Their leader was a young Marine named Jackson, whose brother had died in the first battle. Jackson found Zethron in the ruined command center, standing among the bodies of his officers. The High Arbiter did not try to fight. He simply stood there, watching the human approach with something like curiosity. "So this is how it ends?" Zethron said. "Killed by a species we dismissed as animals." Jackson raised his rifle. "Any last words?" Zethron looked at the young human. He saw no hatred in those eyes, no cruelty, just determination. "Tell your admiral," Zethron said quietly, "that she was right. We should have measured you by what you are, not by what you had." Jackson nodded. Then he pulled the trigger. The war did not end with Zethron's death. It took another 3 years to hunt down the remaining Velkarth forces and liberate every conquered world. Millions more died on both sides. The galaxy was scarred by the conflict in ways that would take generations to heal. But when it was over, something new rose from the ashes. The Galactic Coalition was founded 10 years after the first. Velkarth ship appeared above Earth. It included every species that had fought for freedom: humans, Thraxi, Jelani, Rithari, and hundreds of others. It was built not on conquest or submission, but on choice. Every member joined freely. Every voice was heard. Admiral Helena Vance served as the first human representative to the Coalition Council. She was old now, her hair completely white, her body marked by decades of war. But her eyes were still sharp. Her spirit was still unbroken. On the anniversary of humanity's first victory, she gave a speech that was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. "We did not seek this war," she said. "We did not ask to become symbols of resistance. We were simply people who refused to accept slavery, who believed that freedom was worth dying for." She paused, looking out at the thousands of faces before her, humans and aliens, all standing together. The Velkarth made a mistake when they came to Earth. They saw a small, primitive species and assumed we would be easy to break. They did not understand what makes us human. Our stubbornness, our fury, our refusal to give up, no matter the odds. Helena smiled a tired, peaceful smile. They expected surrender. We answered with warships. And together, we changed the galaxy forever. The crowd erupted in cheers. Humans and aliens celebrated side by side, their differences forgotten in the light of shared victory. In the crowd, Sorval stood with his wife and children, the first generation of Rithari born free in 3,000 years. His daughter held a small flag with a clenched fist on it, the symbol that had become known across the galaxy. She looked up at her father with wide eyes. "Papa, is the story true? Did humans really teach us to be free?" Sorval smiled and lifted her onto his shoulders so she could see the stage where Helena Vance stood. "No, little one," he said softly. "They reminded us that we already knew how. We just forgot." Above them, the stars shone bright. The same stars that had watched empires rise and fall for billions of years. The same stars that had seen the Velkarth conquer 400 species. Now those stars looked down on a galaxy reborn. A galaxy where freedom was not given. It was taken, and humanity had shown the way.